Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 537, The Impact of Ignorance and Deception, Part 7, How Confusion and Nonconformance Defeat Conformance in Your Mind. The podcast objectives are reveal why the progression of death does not stop at error, reveal why many in this nation are pursuing confusion, analyze how the enemy pushes you beyond the realm of salvation, and analyze the impact of confusion within your mind. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcast or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us. For these are troubling times, and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below, and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. Until every potential path of recovery is destroyed. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 507 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we analyze the irreparable damage the spirit of error does to your mind when he is teamed up with distrust. Now, at the conclusion of that podcast, it should have been clear to see how the greater damage of the progression of death has already been done. As I say, we are now far beyond the point of no return, and yet things are about to get worse. That said, the question we should chiefly entertain is this: why does the spirit of deception continue to make matters worse after he has pushed you past the point of no return? The answer is sure, and it is twofold. First and foremost, it is possible that Yahuwah could recover someone who has fallen into error. This speaks to a crucial facet of the point of no return that I will offer to you as a revelation. Get this. The point of no return marks the interval where you cannot return on your own. To wit, you cannot recover from the error and the blindness you have incurred without divine intervention. That said, allow me to be very clear. This is not a very likely scenario, especially in these last days. However, even though it is not plausible, the fact that it is possible should be understood, for it feeds into the second reason why the enemy continues to push you beyond the point of no return. Vis-a-vis, he will not stop fighting you until every potential path of recovery is destroyed. In effect, you cannot recover on your own, and Yahuwah will not recover you. Now, the best way Satan can make that your reality is by pushing you further into the progression of ignorance and deception, which is why I refer to this progression as the progression of death. For although the arm of Elohim is not too short to save, many are resisting the path to recovery and reentry, for the enemy is pulling them away. And today, I will show you how. Let's get started. The quickest path into a state of confusion. Now, per the progression of ignorance and deception, error evolves into confusion. We know this because error and confusion are direct results of misconception, i.e., the fundamental degree of deception. Along these lines, the quickest path to descending into a state of confusion is by working from a belief system fraught with error. Why? It's because error forces you to work with defective data that has the power to transform the truth into a lie. Not only this, but this is after the spirit of disregard forces you to work with an incomplete data set. Now, let's talk about this for just a moment. Vis-a-vis, once you have been infected with disregard, misconception, and error, your thought processes will be like a man who is trying to work a puzzle that has two fatal conditions. Condition number one, you are missing a good majority of the pieces. And condition number two, many of the pieces you are working with originate from different puzzles. To wit, there is no scenario where all the pieces could match. Ergo, the puzzle can never be solved, which is a huge setback, seeing as the puzzle you are trying to solve is Yahuwah's will. To wit, the script you must persistently follow to have everlasting life. Now, that said, the next question we should consider is this: how could you possibly become proficient at executing Yahuwah's will if there is no scenario where you could possibly understand his will? My dear friends, the short answer is you can't. Notwithstanding, many poor fools are convinced they can. And so, what do? Well, I'll tell you, they go from being drawn into the progression of death to becoming a willing and active participant. In effect, their descent into confusion is not forced. Quite the contrary, it is quite voluntary. And this is why confusion is the focal degree of deception. You cannot resist. Now, the scenario where a man begins pursuing confusion, becoming an active participant in his own demise, may sound unlikely, but let me tell you something. This is the inevitable conclusion of everything we have learned since we began analyzing ignorance and deception. My dear friends, just think about everything you have learned up until this point. And if you would allow me to help you, I will summarize these matters with the following treasure box. Get this: the man who has been infected with disregard, misconceptions, and error has not abandoned his beliefs. Quite the contrary, he is yet firm in his beliefs. And if anything, he is even more adamant about his beliefs than he was before. The problem is his belief system has been corrupted beyond repair, for he is blind to the truth, which is why he has no trust in the truth. Ergo, every time he is confronted with the truth, he becomes even more avid concerning the lies that have become his beliefs, to the point where he is even more active in his pursuit, not realizing that the object of his pursuit is confusion. Now, here again, this is why confusion is the focal degree of deception. To wit, the spirit of confusion deceives the masses into following him, but only after they have been infected with error, misconception, and disregard. That said, you must appreciate how this is just the first layer of the deception. Remember, the enemy is trying to push you so far into the deceptive channels of lawlessness that not even Yahuwah will invest his time and resources to save you. Now, this brings us to the question of the hour, vis-a-vis, how can the enemy push you so far into deception that even the Most High Elohim will write you off? The answer is sure. He must corrupt your mind to the point where you will never conform to the will of Elohim. And as it so happens, confusion is designed to eliminate the spirit of conformance from your mind. You can see this by observing the table below. To wit, confusion teams up with nonconformance, which is the only degree of lawlessness that can defeat the spirit of conformance. Now, as I say, it will take an uneven playing field, but we have been on an uneven playing field since the beginning of this war. Trust me, that is not going to change now or ever, for the playing field is demolished and you have no path to victory. We know this because conformance is the primary application of trust. Here lies the problem, vis-a-vis, error and distrust have purged your thought dimension of all trust. Ergo, it's just a matter of time before the same fate meets the spirit of conformance. For where there is no trust, there can be no conformance. Not only this, but it won't be much of a battle. For trust is the primary source of resistance and regulation within your mind. Ergo, once your mind is purged of trust, you will have no resistance to the onslaught of ignorance and deception. And this is yet another reason why you will begin pursuing confusion at this juncture. It is because you cannot resist. An increase in the noise and activity. Now, even though the battles between confusion, nonconformance, and conformance won't be much of a fight, there is yet much value in analyzing these battles. Besides serving as a warning for all the true contenders, this knowledge will help you understand why we have been commanded not to be unevenly yoked with the false Hebrews in this nation. Now, if you recall, conformance causes you to follow every rule required to assimilate you into the spiritual standard of Yahushua Messiah. Here is why this is so important. By following every rule of holiness, you unlock the primary illustration of conformance. Enter a railing system that encompasses the way of holiness. Now, if you recall, the railing system of conformance is designed to keep you secure within the way of holiness. In effect, conformance insulates you from the cares of this life and the troubles of this world. And without this insulation, you would never complete this quest. Along these lines, conformance is the primary spiritual factor associated with every step you take on the path to perfection. This is why the combination of compliance and conformance results in transformation. Now, this is where confusion comes into the equation. Vis-a-vis, confusion cannot exist in a regulated environment. Ergo, the leading degrees of ignorance and deception work together to deregulate your mind, as this will allow confusion to push you far outside the realm of salvation. And this, my friends, is the power of spiritual analysis. Vis-a-vis, we have not only uncovered what the enemy is after, but we have uncovered his strategy for obtaining it. And in case you missed it, I will restate it in the form of a revelation. Get this. The enemy desires to push you so far outside of the realm of salvation to where you cannot recover and Yahuwah will not recover you. To achieve this goal, he must fill your mind with confusion. For confusion, as the focal degree of deception, has the power to cause you to follow a path that is leading to your spiritual and physical demise. However, confusion cannot exist in a regulated environment, for regulation cancels out excess noise and activity. Ergo, the first phase in the progression of death is designed to deregulate your mind, and the spirit of confusion will come in by design. Now, here lies the problem. To wit, you cannot be in the way of holiness if you have been infected with confusion. For look, listen, it has been written, Elohim is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the assemblies of the set apart ones. Not only this, but we can use common sense. To wit, where there is confusion, there can be no conformance. For conformance requires some degree of understanding, and confusion is designed to prevent understanding. Now, the contrary nature of confusion and understanding is clear to see if you reconsider the definition of confusion. Once more, please. By definition, confusion is a situation that is void of understanding due to excess activity and noise, a state of disorder, lack of clarity and comprehension, bewilderment. Now, this definition proves why those who operate in confusion cannot be in the way of holiness. Vis-a-vis, confusion creates a mental environment that is void of understanding, and you cannot follow a path that you do not understand. Ergo, the spirit of confusion generates an unparalleled amount of activity and noise within your thought dimension, which causes your mind to be in a persistent state of disorder, which results in a lack of clarity and comprehension and bewilderment. Now, let me tell you something. You will never achieve mind regulation in this mental environment. It is neither plausible nor possible. And this is how you will find yourself outside of the realm of salvation. Consider this, my friends, and be advised. There is a point in the evolution of confusion where your mind cannot be regulated. To wit, there is a level of noise and activity that will effectually destroy your mind. This is why the next stop on the train of deception is delusion, which is followed closely by insanity. Now, procedurally speaking, these increased levels of noise and activity within your mind will make it impossible for you to distinguish perilous thoughts from those thoughts which are aligned with the Father's will, to wit, the thoughts that have the power to save you. And where one cannot conceive salvation, one cannot receive salvation. And so let this be a lesson to you and a warning. Your mind is migrating towards endless death and captivity when you notice an increase in the noise and activity. This is the impact of confusion and nonconformance. And yet, the damage of deception is not finished. The damage of deception is not done. Now, here is the final word. Your thoughts will be fraught with delusion if your mind is filled with confusion. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, you are witnessing in real time the process in which worse comes to worst. To wit, the evolution from error to confusion is the deadliest progression we will ever analyze. As I say, the persistent presence of error and confusion is torture to your mind. And yet, you are pursuing this torture because you cannot see, for you have been blind for a very long time. Heretofore, I recommend do your best to eliminate the noise in your life and keep your mind regulated, for there is no recovery for a mind where confusion is perpetuated. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson, and if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com, and I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 537, The Impact of Ignorance and Deception, Part 7. And the next podcast is entitled The Torah of Moshe, the Torah of Yahushua Messiah, Part 1. I will post this podcast on Friday, November 21st, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim, continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.